So in this video I'm going to talk about adding folders to the gateway. Now folders in many ways are actually the very simplest form of content you can have in the gateway, but they're actually very powerful, and there are some configuration options that are very much worthwhile understanding. So what I'll do is I'll navigate back to our standard group. I'm logged in as a full admin user with full rights, and in this case I'm going to navigate to the contents view so that I can get a better view of how my content is organized. So in this group at the moment I obviously have 6 items, a variety of items, some news items, some events, project, and in this case a case study. Some of them are published, some of them are unpublished or private, but they're all sitting in the root of my site, and so I might want to organize these a little bit better. So what I'll do is I will add a folder in to my group, and this will allow me to set this up. Now folders really only have a title and a summary, so this is quite simple. In this case I'd like to organize some documents perhaps, so I'm going to call this folder documents and place, and that's really all I need to do. And of course with all content you need to make sure that you remember the published state. In this particular case I would like to have it published, so I will publish that folder immediately. Now the moment I've created my folder, I'm actually taken into the context of that folder, and so right now I'm actually inside the folder, and if I were to add another item it would add it into the folder itself. So if I keep adding folders in sequence they will actually end up inside each other. If I want to go back to my contents view just to be quite clear about that, I'm currently in the documents folder that I added, and it has no content. If I move back up one level I can see that my folder is now sitting here in my contents view. A nifty little trick that you can do if you want is you can actually reorganize your content just by dragging and dropping. So I've decided I'd like my folder at the top of the list, so all I had to do was just drag that. Now if I would like to say move some of these items into that folder, and it doesn't matter what types they are, why don't I move these 3 items into the folder? I would select those items, I will choose cut, and then navigate into the folder, and then from there I can choose paste, and it will paste those items into the folder. And if I go back up a level above, they're no longer there. They are now down in the folder that I added. So it's very simple to create folders and reorganize your content into those folders. Now the next thing to think about though is once you have a folder, when you go to view that folder or follow a link to the folder, what do you see? Now if I go to view this folder now, by default it will simply list the items as best as it can within the folder that I've just chosen. Now what it's doing is it's simply by default providing a default template. Now there are several different display views that you can choose. I'm not going to go through all of them in detail, but it's quite safe to experiment just changing between these different views. Tabulation view shows a much more tabulated list of the items that are in the folder, and the all content view actually literally displays the contents of each of the items one above the other on the page. Sometimes that's useful. It's a slightly odd view. And the album view is very useful if you've got a lot of photographs or images in a folder. It will turn it into a little photo album. But normally the standard or summary views are the most common views that you might find useful for displaying content in the folder. Now what I'm also going to do is create one more item in this folder. I'm going to add a page into this folder, and then I'm going to demonstrate how I can make that page the default view of the folder. So this is so I've created my default page and I publish it. Now I'm going to go back to the contents view. Obviously I've got my documents here and I've got a default page here. If I sit on the documents folder and view it, I can still see all of my items, and there's my default page. Now what I might want to do is, rather than having any one of these listings, I might want to have much more control over how the folder displays. So I can change the display to select a content item as the default view. I'll select that option. Now this gives me a list of items. It's slightly obscured by this spot here. I'll just increase my page size so it's not. So now I can choose which item I would like to make my default item for the folder. So I choose the page and I click Save, and then now the folder will re-display, and in actual fact it will display with my default page. So I'm now viewing the folder, but I'm actually seeing the default page. I can tell I'm viewing the folder because it's showing up here in the left menu, and when I navigate to it, so I can navigate away from it. Let me just prove. If I navigate away from that folder, and then if I navigate back to the documents folder, rather than seeing my listings, I actually see the default page for that folder. Now, one small feature I'd like to demonstrate before we finish is the ability to hide this folder from navigation. Now, this can be done with any content. So I would like to remove this particular folder from the left navigation. So what I'll do first of all, just making sure that I'm in the context of the folder, I will go to the Edit link for this folder. So I'm editing the folder, and under Settings there's an option called Exclude from Navigation. So I'll tick that option and then click Save. Now while I'm on the folder itself it will still show, but if I navigate away from it, it will no longer show up in the navigation. So my folder still exists. Technically it's still accessible by the public, but it doesn't show up in the navigation. Getting back to our list. So really, folders are very simple. All you need to do is give them a title or a summary. You can move pages around within them. Do not forget to publish, and also there is the option to hide the folder from the navigation. And also, of course, you can set a default template or a default page for a folder.